sponsored by me. Read my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death. Link in the description. The following contains spoilers for All-Star Superman and Superman vs. the Elite. You have been warned. Greetings, fellow mortals. What makes a hero? Why do we care about the protagonist of a story? What qualities do we see in the main characters of the tale that we should admire? There are many different answers to these questions because no story has the exact same type of champion. It all depends on the tale trying to be told. But in a world which seems to obsess with dark heroes that are almost as bad as the villains, I wanted to take a moment to appreciate a character that is pure good, one who is uncompromisingly moral, a character that makes people both in their universe and the audience watching want to be a better person. Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El of Krypton, the superhero above all other superheroes. If you ask any random person on the street to name a comic book character, they would most likely name one of the top 3 popular characters in that genre: Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. They may not be your favorites, but they have one of the largest legacies in modern media.
Welcome back, Captain Obvious.
Yes, I am!
And it makes sense. Spider-Man is the everyman struggling in all areas of his life. Batman is the brooding loner who drowns in the regrets of his life. Superman, however, is the character who stands out the most. From the outside, it's hard to relate to him. He's all-powerful, is handsome, he doesn't struggle financially, he doesn't brood, he has a healthy, romantic life, and he is so morally sound that even the other characters and heroes of the DC Universe call him a Boy Scout. And that brand seems to bleed into the audience as well. How many times have you heard someone call Superman boring? He has no good stories apparently. His powers always save the day. He never has to compromise on his morals. He's a beacon of never-ending hope in his universe. In fact, it's gotten to the point that the most creative thing that modern writers can seem to think to do with Superman is to turn him evil. Because what if there was an evil Superman? Even that's gotten boring at this point. Injustice is all about Superman falling to the dark side after the Joker kills Lois Lane and destroys Metropolis. P.S. I don't think this is a spoiler because it's at the very start of the game. The boys' entire premise is that there is an evil Justice League run by an evil corporation. Invincible's entire hook is that the main character's dad is evil Superman. I think that just goes to show that modern writers have a hard time understanding a character who will always save the day and never falters morally. And this does kind of make sense. In a lot of ways, the comic book characters of our age are the equivalent of the mythology of old: Egyptian, Japanese, Greek, Roman, Norse, and many more. These are larger-than-life characters that have multiple versions of themselves and stories of them. There is barely a person alive that hasn't heard of Superman, after all. Like with those stories of old, the comic book characters have been taken in many different directions with intricate lore. Of course, the reason for the older variations and inconsistencies is because a lot of them were recorded by word of mouth or by languages that have long since faded with time. The reason for the multiple versions of Superman, however, is retcons and what ifs, so that they can still make money. So there's a bit of a difference, and our stories are more for entertainment now than explaining the intricate aspects of the universe that we can't understand yet. We have science now. We can explain the weather, the day cycles, and the circle of life. Of course, people can't accept that the earth is round, so what do I know? No. Of course, Superman is vastly different than old mythology. In order to explain the reason life sucked and then people died, people had to come up with stories. They created tales of gods and demigods who were as temperamental as humans. These deities weren't anything to strive to be, so in a way, Superman is closer to a benevolent religious figure, kind of like how Man of Steel kept comparing him to Jesus Christ. Yeah, that had the subtlety of a jackhammer. Except that's not Superman. He doesn't want to be a religious figure. He doesn't want to be a god. He doesn't take his bad days out on people. He sees the best in the world and the people around him. All he wants is to try to help other people. He knows just how strong he is, and he wants to use that in the most beneficial way possible. Yes, he's unfailing morally. He doesn't do bad things. I doubt that he would even jaywalk. Superman's moral compass isn't the only thing that's unbreakable. His power shatters the system. No one person can really beat Superman at his strongest. In order to challenge Superman, most of the time writers have to strip him of his strength, kryptonite, red sunlight, magic. He needs vulnerabilities, kind of like Achilles with his tendon or Samson with his hair. In every possible way, Superman is a stagnant character. That means that he doesn't have real character development. He doesn't change, his worldview isn't altered, he doesn't grow stronger. Superman faces the world, and the world changes. It's a beautiful modification to the hero's journey, and it's difficult to pull off. You need to have a level of skill with writing to keep people interested in a main character who doesn't change. Otherwise, you'll become a failed attempt to subvert expectations. There can be a lot of different versions of this type of character. It could be a fighter like James Bond or John Wick. It could be a compassionate soul like Desmond Doss from Hacksaw Ridge, or even, as much as I hate to say this, Steven Universe. As I said, it takes a strong level of writing to have a character remain basically the same throughout a series or story, but I can think of 2 series from the exact same author that writes an all-powerful main character brilliantly. A manga artist best known for her pseudonym One created 2 amazing series called One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100. Both of the series follows characters who are so powerful that they cannot be beaten. If they are pushed in a fight, they will find a new level of power to help save the day. These characters are Saitama and Shigeho. Both of them shatter the strength levels of their respective universes, either with one almighty punch that kills anything in its way, or through reaching a 100% emotional breakdown. Not to say that these characters are completely stagnant. Saitama's relationships change, Mob grows as a stronger emotional person, people grow to care about them, but in a lot of ways, these 2 characters are rather stagnant when it comes to their morals. Saitama and Shigeho / Mob know what the right thing to do is. Saitama's problem is that he's always late or in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mob's is that he's an emotionally vulnerable young man who doesn't want to rely on his powers to feel special. Both of the characters feel a deep level of isolation. Saitama is at the peak of his field. There is no room to grow. There is no way to be challenged. There is only boredom and a bunch of ungrateful people around him. If anyone shows up that can actually fight him and challenge him, his powers multiply by 10. He is a god who can't be beaten or killed. This is a level of responsibility that he doesn't even seem to consider as he tries to go about his normal life. All he knows is that he feels alone and bored. Meanwhile, Mob has to deal with the fact that his powers don't get him what he wants out of life. They don't make him fit or smart or good at talking with girls. It doesn't make people appreciate him for who he is. Instead, he wants to grow beyond his unbeatable aspirabilities. But nothing he does makes his telekinesis stronger. From the start, his 100% or even his unknown percent have been shown to be unbeatable. One is a master of making characters with all the power in the world who aren't fulfilled by their lives.
Oh, beautiful.
There is a small sense of nihilism, hopelessness, and isolation in both series. Saitama and Mob see the world in a way that no one can imagine, but all they want is to get along with other people, make the world a little bit of a better place, and go about their lives. Kind of like Superman. Of course, there's more humor in these series. The absurdity of the situations are always played up a bit. A bald man in his 20s is the strongest superhero. A kid without any social skills or physical ability is the strongest person on the planet. It's all a little funny, and you gotta admit it. And I think that's part of the key to Superman. He is a bit absurd of a character. He's limitless. Things should be funny to him. He can make jokes and treat threats lightly. A villain should be on the verge of destroying the city. All of the other heroes are defeated, and Superman shows up, beats the threat with one punch, disarms the bomb, and does first aid on everyone in the blink of an eye. It can be portrayed for laughs because there is no threat to Superman other than himself and philosophical questions. While holding a light attitude and all the power in the universe, Superman can't do everything. He can't be everywhere all at once, just like with Saitama. So many people could be demanding his help that he's overwhelmed. He feels terrible because he can't help everyone. Some people will be lost. That could be an internal conflict. Or it could be that his powers aren't exactly what he wants out of life, like with Mob. All he can do is destroy and break things. Instead, Clark could have a desire to heal the injured and the ill. Tie it into his despair over the storyline where Papa Kent died of cancer. Oh, well, there goes the humor in this video. Sorry about the buzzkill.
So, do you really think you're suited to be the fourth guy in our group, Buzz Killington?
And throughout all of this, Superman has to deal with people who are constantly telling him what he should do with his powers. It reminds me of the Superman versus the Elite storyline, where Clark is criticized for not killing his foes. In response, Superman demonstrates just how terrifying he could be if he didn't constantly hold himself back by using perfect restraint. One slip from him could destroy an entire city block, if not more, and he takes that responsibility to heart. Just because he has power doesn't mean that he has the right to judge who should live and who should die. Another great example comes from Lex Luthor. There are many reasons why Lex hates Superman, but one of the most common is jealousy. Lex wants Superman's abilities and thinks that he could do better than Clark with the strength of a god. Never mind that he has all the money in the world and could fix many of the world's problems just by trying to help, because Lex just wants the power. Yet he's unprepared by the weight of being Superman and All-Star Superman. He's so overwhelmed that his entire view on reality is shaken. So there are plenty of ways to write an interesting story for Superman where his morals and mental fortitude are tested. It helps that he's a good person who was raised to care about other people. Because life isn't completely like when we needed stories of gods to explain away disasters. Instead, we can have a different type of tale where the hero is actually 100% the good guy. It doesn't have to be boring either. All you have to do is be creative and use your imagination.
The book has no story. There's no story.
All right, make one up.
There are plenty of different directions that you can take Superman. While he has adopted loving parents, it's not the same as having his own Kryptonian people. You could focus on his solitude as the only Kryptonian on Earth. He's out saving the world and everything seems perfect, but then he goes home to an empty apartment and doesn't have a single person to understand his point of view. Then you can have Supergirl and Superboy show up. Clark has to teach them how to use their powers and to be good people with the abilities of a god. All the while he grows closer to them and feels less lonely. Or Superman could have decided to undo the effects of climate change using Kryptonian technology. Frustrated that they can't control Superman and have lost one of their political talking points, the UN condemns him and decides that he's an illegal immigrant. They banish him from Earth until he decides to only act when they give him orders. Being a law-abiding citizen, Superman obeys. He takes his Kryptonian technology to space or to Mars, but he decides to return whenever there is serious danger, because people's safety is more important to him than following the law. But he leaves immediately after saving the day, causing mass protests of the UN for unfairly treating a real hero. Possibly, it could be as simple as Superman visiting a children's cancer ward in the hospital. He visits regularly, but is dismayed when a little girl begs him to cure her. He desperately uses his alien technology to try to find a way to help her, but finds no results. After she passes, he reflects on how limited his abilities really are. While his actions are unchanged, he remains in internal conflict. He feels like a soldier rather than a healer and a protector. When he's getting knocked around more during fights, the remaining kids write letters to him declaring him their hero and that they want him to protect the world when they're gone. With tears in his eyes, he says that those kids are his heroes and he's honored to be their guardian while they have their own battles. Of course, it could be simple comic book storylines too. In order to prove that Superman is no better than anyone else, Lex Luthor uses kryptonite to steal Superman's powers and hides them away. He makes Superman fight to get them back, all for Superman to prove his ideals in the end and win. Brainiac has trained an army of surviving Kryptonians, but Superman defeats them by proving that how one uses their abilities is more important than having the powers to begin with. Or Darkseid brainwashes the Justice League, and Superman has to beat everyone and defeat the gods of Apocalypse, all of which he struggles to do because he doesn't want to hurt his friends. It's not that complicated, but the stories don't always have to be.
Still, it's not exactly brain surgery, is it?
Because in this world of complicated morals and misfortune, not every icon needs to be a brooding loner or a complicated anti-hero. Not to take away from those types of characters, but Superman should never be that. He's a goofy Boy Scout that's got all the power in the world. He had a great childhood with the Kents. He always sees the best in humanity. He loves what he does and only wants to make things better. He always saves the day perfectly because he's got the power and the moral compass to do so. If someone tells you Superman is boring, know that that's just them not being creative. What's more interesting than a man with absolute power fighting off the corrupting touch of being stronger than everything? If he wanted to, Superman could enslave the entire planet. He's our ultimate guardian and a symbol of hope and peace, an ideal that we should all strive to be. I think that's beautiful and should be respected. Whether in fiction or reality, sometimes we just need a true hero to show us the way, because that's 100% what Superman is, a true hero. But what do you think? Am I completely off base here? What's your favorite Superman story? Do you think that Superman can be interesting? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would really help me out. Also, please remember that I just released my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death, Book 1 in the Written in Stone series. Link in the description. Also, remember that my second novel, Above Heaven, will be released in May 2023. I hope that you'll check it all out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.